Hi, this is Patrick Henry, the CEO of Quest Fusion with The Real Deal What Matters. I'm here today with Misty Rusk. Misty is the founder of the San Diego Angel Conference, and she also runs an important small business development center at the University of San Diego called the Innovation Center, or the BRINC, for small business development. And she's here to talk a little bit about the amazing job that her and her team did in adjusting to the adversity caused by COVID-19, where she currently runs what we believe is the largest angel conference in the United States, which is a live event. And she and her team were able to convert this to a virtual event that was spectacular. We've been involved in the conference the last 2 years with my company, Grow Guru. And I just thought it was incredible. So I wanted her to be able to talk a little bit about that and how she was able to pull that off. So Misty, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into working with small businesses and angel investing?
Thanks, Patrick. It's great to be here today. I first got involved in small business. I guess I was born into small business. So I grew up on a cattle ranch with very entrepreneurial parents, and they always seem to have little side things going, and I either have a passion or a knack or at least a lot of exposure. And so when I finished grad school, I found myself working for a county government as their economic development director. It was part of my responsibilities, and I thought, oh, this is what I've been looking for, like my whole life. This is it. So I've been doing this for about almost 20 years. And in one of the jobs where I worked, it was clear that the community wasn't willing to recruit big businesses, and they wanted to grow, and they wanted a vibrant economy, but they didn't want outside help. So we got focused on startups, and that's when we started the first Willamette Angel Conference about 10 years ago. And that conference has been very successful over time. And so when I got to San Diego a couple of years ago, it seemed like there was something missing, and that an angel conference could fill a dramatic need to give first-time angel investors a place to play. So a place where they could come and learn a lot of things, where they could get exposure to a bunch of different deals, to build their own network, and to actually make investments in at least one deal.
Cool. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about, so you had previous experience with angel conferences, building them from scratch. You get to San Diego, much bigger market. You see the kind of need in the market, but how did you go about kind of recruiting angel investors and companies and sponsors and all those kinds of things?
Yeah, one of it's a where I came from when we started, I already had a really big network, and I could just sort of I just called a bunch of favors from serial entrepreneurs and bankers and business owners to launch our first conference. And I didn't have any of that when I came to San Diego. So I don't know, a few hundred coffee meetings later, and one really fantastic article in the San Diego Business Journal, 200 words, just saying like, hey, if you're interested in angel investing, there's this new thing happening. It was that combination of just a brutal number of conversations and that one specific article in the newspaper that drove the first 34 investors into the first fund. So whole variety of efforts to get there, some social media stuff. We had a very active communication, like a campaign with all of the sister organizations in town, and found angel investors participate on Twitter. We drove a lot of things that way, the newspaper article, and then just a lot of meetings. So got the first 34 in the room. We saw nearly 100 deals the first year. And what we had happened was we really built a great network of early stage investors who were willing to come back, and most of them played the second year as well. So
cool. Yeah, so one of the most interesting and kind of really cool aspects of what you're doing with the Angel Conference, from my perspective, is you have a set of kind of more experienced angel investors And I'll just, for the audience out there that doesn't know what an angel investor is, this is somebody that's a high net worth individual or family office. They have to be an accredited investor, which is defined by the federal government. They have to have either a certain net worth or a certain income between yourself and your spouse. So there's a set of qualifications. But getting back to the original point, you've got these experienced angel investors, and typically angel investing involves an initial investment in a company of like $25,000 to $50,000. And what you've done is brought in these kind of novice first-time angel investors and lowered the threshold because they're investing through the Angel Conference Fund, and they're able to put in as little as $5,500. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, the first unit is $6,000, includes all the fees, but $5,000 of that goes into the pool of funds that eventually get invested in the winning company.
Yeah, and that's, I think just it's good for the startups. It's great for the angel investors. They get experience, and that's just, being on the entrepreneur side of it. I've been angel investing myself. I've been involved in the Angel Conference because I've been totally focused on building Grow Guru. But I just thought it was just a very creative and fantastic idea. So kudos to you for that. So obviously, as someone that was orchestrating a large in-person conference when COVID-19 and the health crisis hit, you had to move quickly to either cancel, kind of like a South by Southwest, we're just pulling out, or figure out a way to make things happen, either with social distancing or with a partially virtual conference or a fully virtual conference. Can you encapsulate that in kind of a 2 to 3 minute nutshell of how you went about that and ultimately what you came to?
Yeah, so we could see the writing on the wall that people were nervous. Like if you talked about this on March 15th, people would be like, oh, there's this virus thing and it's sort of in China and maybe it's going to impact us. And then, by 10 days later, we were shutting down entire cities. So that was right in the middle. The planning for this event takes more than a year. We actually start planning for the Angel Conference more than a year before it happens. So before we execute this year's Angel Conference, we're already planning for the next one. So to get down to the wire like that, when we could see the writing on the wall that things were about to change, we went to our weekly investors meeting and laid out some options. We had the companies, Patrick, I think you were actually at that meeting where we said like, hey, here are 3 options. 1, we cancel and we give everybody back their money and we tell the companies we're really sorry. 2, we go forward and we try and do some kind of in-person event because we still thought that might be possible with a smaller group. Or 3, like maybe there's some other way we could do this, but give us a week to figure it out. And I think that's what we said. Give us a week to figure it out. And everybody kind of said, yeah, let's go forward. Like we asked everybody in the room and the investors we didn't have any investors ask for their money back. Nobody pulled away. There were some conversations about, what was the right thing to do. But at the end of the day, all our investors, all our sponsors, all our companies stayed at the table. And we're pretty far into the process. We're almost 6 months into the process by that point. So when we decided
that alone to me is incredible, that everybody remained in kind of that mindset and we're going forward. We're going to figure it out. We don't know how, but the investors wanted to stay in, the startups wanted to stay in, the sponsors wanted to stay in. I think that alone is just pretty impressive, but continue kind of with how you kind of went forward from there.
Well, and the interesting thing is at that point, I'd have to go back and do some digging to find out the exact numbers. At that point, we had just over $200,000 secured for the fund. Before the day of the event, so between the middle of March and March 30th, we secured another $200,000 from investors. And the day of the event, we secured another 110 or 120,000. So all told, we ended up with over $500,000 in investment, and we moved 14 units the day of the conference, which is incredible. Like I can't even imagine. And we had 4 or 5 investors that we had not engaged with before who came in as passive investors at the last minute. So it was just this incredible commitment to sticking with it. And part of the reason it worked is everybody was canceling everything. Nobody was trying to figure out like, how do you do this in an emergency? And I have this really one, we had a team of investors that really stayed and played. Benton Moore was incredible about just sticking with us and helping us iterate every single day. And then I have a core staff of, there's 6 of us. And we just worked round the clock to figure out problem after problem. So what we ended up executing, when we started, I was like, what is that thing that like you can do on YouTube where it's like live, right? Or like, is there some way we could do that? Like, I didn't even know the words for live streaming. I didn't even have language for it in the beginning. 8 days before, I didn't have language for it. And so the fact that our team turned it around and pulled it off was pretty amazing. I know why we're the only one who did that, because it's really, really hard, and there was no certainty. There was a pretty good chance, 12 hours before the event, we were still going to cancel because we weren't going to figure it all out. And at the last minute, took a big risk and made the jump, and all the technology worked without a dress rehearsal. And we just muscled it, and everybody worked with us. Patrick, I know you were in Las Vegas, and you drove all the way back to San Diego to do the video production, to do a 10-minute pitch for the video team that week, so that it all looked uniform and it all looked professional. So everybody did amazing work those last 2 weeks before the event to make that jump.
So what's kind of your biggest takeaways kind of in moving from the in-person to the virtual, positive and negative type of things, but also kind of what are you taking from that experience? Let's say you're going to go back to a live event when things get back to normal, whatever normal looks like. And, are there still things you would incorporate from this, and kind of what's your thought process now with you and your team around that?
Right. The first thing I know is that for certain, doing a live stream event is really, really hard. It's not just like having a few video cameras and production guy in the room while you're running a live event. And I always thought, like, why can't we ever just figure this out? So now I understand the complexity of it, and that it actually takes a real team to do it right. And the second part of that is we will always do it again. Now that we've done it once, next year we've already figured out what is it going to take to run the live event and simultaneously run a live streamed event at the same time. And for us, it will be a new imperative because of what the live stream event brought to the table. So I always get asked if we can give away tickets. I always get asked if some school can send a student. Or I always get asked if there's a way for somebody's family to watch, right? So we always have companies that are pitching in this environment and would love to have family who lives far away be able to come and see. And it's not feasible. But with the live stream event, we were able to have, somebody's sister got to see her pitch for the first time. And she was in another country. And we had entire classrooms with all the school going online. Teachers are really struggling for content and some of those kinds of things. We were able to have entire classrooms participate and watch the event. And then since then, somebody on our team has gone back and done meetings with those classes to say, what'd you learn? What'd you like? What can we do better? How pitch something to us. So it's really opened doors that we could never do in a live event. Huge cost for the venues, and we've got big cost for catering, and every seat costs us quite a bit of money. This opens the door to just way more engagement and involvement than we've ever seen before. So
that's cool. And like you said, you got 14 additional units the day of, which is extremely impressive. Now, there's this kind of federal regulation, and I'm kind of like trying to think of the name of it, but where if you're an entrepreneur, you can't pitch to the general public. So, how do you do that from a live streaming? Because obviously that was a big thing, even in the live event, that you can manage that properly. So can you give me a little bit kind of behind the curtain look at kind of what that was, and what did that look like, and the discussion around that?
Right. So we have a legal team that's involved. So MINS is the legal sponsor of the event, and not only do they sponsor the event, but they are there to answer all kinds of questions for us all along the way. So there were some critical ways that we talked about angel investing for both the live stream and then the live event. It's not something you can just decide you want to play at. So we put some parameters in place. If you were interested, if you saw the event on the live stream that day and you were interested in participating, there was a website you could go to, and then somebody picked up the phone to check and see if you're, a real person and if you really are accredited. And we had some checks and balances that we were able to execute that way to meet those criteria, so that we don't end up breaking the law and offering basically a financial instrument where we shouldn't be.
Right.
So there was a way for us to manage that process.
Cool. Yeah, I remember what it's called. It's general solicitation.
Right. I was struggling with it too.
But it sounds like you found a workaround, so that's awesome.
Yep.
So any kind of final words of wisdom for the entrepreneurial audience out there in terms of, especially in these kind of difficult times, they're seeking capital, they're looking for, payroll protection program funds from the federal government. There's just a lot of stuff going on, and you're an entrepreneur, you're an angel investor, you've built something, many things from scratch. What are your best words of wisdom for the audience out there?
Right. So for anybody, anywhere in the United States, reach out to your local SBDC. They can help you navigate those processes. So for us in San Diego, that means federal programs, state programs, county and city programs. So we've got lots and lots of resources, and local SBDCs have come up to speed on all of these programs really, really quickly so that we can provide technical assistance. So not only are there in the San Diego area, there's, 50 or 60 of us that are working on this full time. In addition to that, we've helped at this point hundreds, maybe thousands of companies through that process, and the service is free. So that's one thing. Anybody out there, if you've got a small business and you haven't reached out to your local SBDC, please do that. That's, they're really geared up to support people. We're working really broadly to make sure we can do that. Second, angel investing's up. So in the 5 days after the conference, we saw 5 deals for a total of $2 million. And that was in the first 30 days of the shutdown. We're continuing to see anything that is the burgeoning opportunities where people are serving either protective equipment, any kind of vaccination related stuff, of course, all of the things that are directly related, but in a situation where there's a ton of layoffs, there's a ton of retirement software opportunities, and there's insurance opportunities. And we're just seeing lots and lots of work actually growing at this time. We also know at the end of or in the midst of the 2008 recession, the ones we're calling the unicorns, the big winners, came out of that, and we're starting to see similar kinds of things right now. So recessions drive really creative work, and people take much bigger risks. And we have seen venture capital drop off a little bit, but actually the angel activities up. Everybody I talk to, the angel activities up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that would be
how do people get a hold of you or your team if they want to participate in next year's San Diego Angel Conference? And, and do they have to be in San Diego to participate?
Yeah, so the fund managers have opened the contest to all of the United States. You just have to be a U.S. company to participate. We haven't tried to figure out international regulation, and it's still we're still a little bit that's a little bit too advanced for us. But if you're a U.S. company, you're welcome to participate in the Angel Conference to be able to apply. So it's not San Diego based necessarily. Probably 85% of the companies that participated were San Diego companies, but of the 3 winners this year, 1 out of Irvine, 1 out of LA, and 1 out of San Diego. So definitely some broad participation. Anybody who's interested, you can find out more information at www.thesdangels.com. So
Great.
ASD.com is the website to go to for both investors who are interested in learning more or for entrepreneurs. We've set the deadline, application deadline for 2021 is December 16th. And I don't think you can actually apply yet, but we've got the deadline set, and the conference date for next year, March 27th, 2021.
Terrific. All right, this has really been great. Thank you so much, Misty. We're talking to Misty Rosk, the director of the University of San Diego Innovation Center, also called the Brink Small Business Development Center, and she's the founder of the San Diego Angel Conference. And she's somebody that I greatly admire and has just done a fantastic job fueling not only the San Diego and Southern California, but now the United States innovation economy with what she's doing with angel investors. And really appreciate you doing this and getting the word out there, and also just the great work that you do, both from a small business standpoint and the angel investing.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me, Patrick. It's a lot of fun.